gotten letters from kids that say, you know, please keep Ernie. Bert will be unhappy.
Jim Henson's Muppets will always remind us of this wonderful, talented man.
7-year-old Emily Winnie says her favorite character, Big Bird, must continue without Henson.
He's probably thinking about Jim a lot. My favorite Muppet is Kermit, and I think he's sad, and I think all the Muppets are sad. I still think it'll never be the same without Jim Henson. The puppets could still go on. They could live forever.
It's time for saying goodbye. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la
Without Henson, this seemed like a logical step, since a fourth Muppet movie was always intended. One of the intended concepts had a script written and was titled The Cheapest Muppet Movie Ever Made. The intention to be a movie within a movie directed by Gonzo, titled Into the Jaws of the Demons of Death. Gonzo would spend half the budget on the opening credits, meaning that the movie budget would decrease progressively, only to get a proper budget back as a result of sponsorships, allowing its conclusion to once again be over budget. The actual plot of Gonzo's in-universe movie being unknown. I personally assume the film would have segments dedicated to Gonzo's direction and the in-universe movie. This scrap project could be considered more experimental, so I'm curious to see if it would truly resonate with audiences upon release date. The thing about the Muppets from a structural creative perspective is that there was always a team being guided by Henson. So who would be the creative that would replace Henson to resume the same processes? Well, Henson, Brian Henson, Jim's third child. Brian Henson had been involved in minor parts, and hopefully he'd be alive longer, so nepotism, hell yeah. But this is a rare instance of nepotism I don't hate. Brian Henson's talent agent pitched the idea to Brian to tell the story of A Christmas Carol using Muppets, on the basis that A Christmas Carol was an acclaimed piece of literature. And what may seem like a off-the-cuff idea was shockingly well received. In my opinion, it's a more genius concept than you'd ever expect. Having the adaptation of A Christmas Carol being a movie within a movie. Being one of the most famous pieces of literature, I don't gotta tell you the plot. Casting the Muppets as different characters from the novel. The casting is perfect for both the Muppet stand-ins and when the film uses standard portrayals of the characters. It's actually stupid how well cast the Muppets are. The use of pre-existing characters enhancing the source material way more than you'd expect. Another large benefit to its concepts to retain the human Muppet dynamic, with Ebenezer Scrooge being the equivalent of the celebrity special guest, being portrayed by big-name actor Sir Michael Caine for an enhanced sense of audience familiarity. Caine decided to take his role ridiculously seriously, which is a benefit to show the moral irregularities in comparison to the people around him. The Muppets are shockingly the functioning members of society here, in addition to the ghosts of the story being Muppetized spins rather than filled roles. Also creating original children for Kermit and Piggy, an actual oddity to see but benefits the hypothetical in the end. The usage of Gonzo as Charles Dickens tagging along with Rizzo the Rat as himself being one of the most sparing creative decisions. Often reciting the original text directly, which the film does, and it's obvious because he starts speaking 1800s Brit talk, but it does an excellent job of reincorporating dialogue throughout. Also altering Jacob Marley to be the Marley brothers, being portrayed by Statler and Waldorf, the characters from the original ensemble most aligned with Scrooge. The film does start out in memoriam to both Jim Henson and Richard Hunt. This is further reflective throughout the absence of Rolf and Scooter, Rolf being limited to a silent character, being that he was the Muppet most close to Henson, while not being a character too integral to exclude narratively, unlike Kermit.
When I came into the thing, I was 18, and I was really energetic, and, I'd say, yeah, sure, everything you want to do, boss, no problem. I talked a lot like him. He's my voice when I was younger, like this.
Hi, are you Kermit the Frog?
Yeah.
I'm Scooter.
Cute name.
I'm your new gopher.
Gopher? No. We have frogs and pigs and chickens around here, but we've never had a gopher. Matter of fact, you don't even look like a gopher.
Yeah, well, you don't understand. You see, I'm your new gopher. Yeah, I'll go for coffee. I'll go for sandwiches. I'll go for anything you need.
Given that Scooter was kind of a self-insert of Richard Hunt, the character was temporarily retired. Despite being a Muppet retelling, that might just come off as a shitpost, but the Muppet actors don't eliminate any of the themes of the source material. As for Kermit, this is Steve Whitmire's first proper Kermit performance, and in his brief appearance in the Celebrate Jim Henson special, it's a little rough.
Let me thank you for being with us for our tribute to Jim Henson. And we'll be seeing you soon with more Muppet stuff, because that's the way the boss would want it.
But by Carroll's production, he'd perfected his spin on the character.
How was the church?
Oh, as good as gold and better. He told me that he hoped the people saw him in church because it might be pleasant for them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see.
Given that Kermit's voice was similar to Jim's outright speaking voice, it is very hard to replicate since that involves zero vocal manipulation tactics. So getting it perfect would be next to impossible, but Whitmire still does an excellent job with handling the franchise's mascot. Like I said, the themes are retained, so there's still a horror edge to everything, seeing well-executed supernatural Muppet imagery, while retaining the drama that makes Scrooge's change in character effective to the audience.
I am sure we shall never forget Tiny Tim, or this first parting that there was among us.
Still killing off Tiny Tim, even in a kid's movie. A Christmas Carol being a public domain story with so much acclaim, there's been tons of other PG adaptations that don't temporarily kill off Tiny Tim, a crucial plot point amongst Scrooge's change in character. From what I've seen, lots of parody adaptations and child-friendly version, the child lives throughout. But if the Muppets can do it, so can you. Don't be a pussy, kill the child, even if it's an elementary school play. Paul Williams of The Muppet Movie and Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas came back to write the songs, and I think it's their greatest soundtrack. The seasonal replay value helps, but the orchestral approach to everything just knocks you into the stratosphere with some holiday cheer for bonus, while retaining the drama, comedy, holiday, heart, and horror aspect of the source material, enhancing the emotional weight of each plot point with the grim and cheerful nature of the holiday season. Atmospheric is a great way to describe countless elements of the film. The set design captures 1840s England aesthetic perfectly, while kind of visually retaining the light social commentary aspects of the original story, displaying the consequences of wealth inequality as it attempts to be reformed over the gift of giving. With the cinematography being both classy for the high class and greatly gritty for the low class, like previous Muppet projects, especially Caper, also set in England. This was the 90s, so this was the beginning of the modern day special effects we use now, and there's actually lots of green screen, but it's used incredibly strategically, most of the skies and backdrops being fake. Marley and Marley is a particularly impressive number from two characters who rarely sing. Michael Caine, despite being the protagonist of the movie, doesn't sing very much over the course of the movie, and that's a great way to evolve the sense of changing as a person. He could have easily had a number about how he hates everything, but singing would make him a more functioning member amongst his Muppet society. He doesn't even sing his own introductory. It's the Muppet citizens around him criticizing him, denying any chance of his moral character changing, foreshadowing the unexpected change in Scrooge's moral differences. He only has one solo song despite his screen time, Thankful Heart, a redemption song. The song When Love Is Gone, when Scrooge loses his hoochie and future Scrooge views his memory again, being the thing that finally breaks him, and we hear him sing for the first time when the movie is almost over. Kane's brief musical performances are great. The pain and shift in his identity is very noticeable through his vocal tones, both elevating the narrative. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's because this musical number was cut out of the theatrical version. And why? Disney. Disney did not make the film, but they did distribute it, meaning that the film is a collaboration between the Henson Company and Disney, attempting to fulfill Henson's vision of Disney ownership.
That's the way the boss would want it.
But that legally couldn't be fulfilled because that didn't stop collaboration. Disney wanted the specific scene removed because the scene did poorly in test screenings, which is kind of an asinine take to say that kids wouldn't like that part of the film when it released in 1992, the same time as the Disney Renaissance. Hell, it was in theaters the same time as Aladdin. It's a very Disney princessy ballad, which were decades before The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, which were recent additions to the catalog in 1992. Yes, there's no Muppets because Gonzo and Rizzo are used reasonably throughout the film, never interrupting proper character development with their narration shenanigans. But Disney seriously thought kids were that stupid. It's like 3 minutes without Muppets. I get they don't have long attention spans, but 3 minutes?
Uh-oh, they're starting to argue philosophy.
a foreshadowing of the horror to come. But it's a great number and important to the narrative of Scrooge's character building, given the reprise to conclude the movie. Seeing Scrooge only sing as a backing vocalist for the first time in the last 30 seconds or so is much more effective of a redemption than Grateful Heart, which When Love Is Gone sets up. Brian Henson and company disagreed with Disney's policy, but complied to their order because it could risk losing the distributor that the boss would have wanted. However, this instance of corporate meddling in Muppets only applies to the theatrical version. The VHS home media releases included this scene. Later home media releases, like most DVDs, contain the theatrical edit. So if you grew up with the movie on DVD, there's a good chance that there's an entire musical number you may have never seen. The master film reels did go missing, so by the time of crispier DVD remasters, it wasn't included in that. But thankfully, the original master copies of the film were recovered and remastered the VHS version, and that became widely available to stream on Disney+. The VHS remaster being an extra on the selection screen on Disney+. You can also view the scene individually in its remaster. It should be the other way around if you ask me. Why would you knowingly watch the DVD version if it doesn't have all the content? Throw the DVD/theatrical version in the garbage, watch the VHS remaster version. When Love Is Gone isn't the only deleted song from the movie either. There were 2 numbers that never even had sequences shot and were simply soundtrack exclusives. First, Room in Your Heart, sung by Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker, encouraging Scrooge to donate to charity for the benefit of love. Second, Chairman of the Board, sung by Sam Eagle, expanding the plot point of Scrooge viewing his youth receiving his education through song. They're cute numbers, but I don't have a problem with them being excluded since there's already plot points dedicated to these aspects of Scrooge's character, so their exclusion isn't hugely consequential to Scrooge's character progression. The Muppets Christmas Carol is genuinely the best version of A Christmas Carol. The pre-existing Muppets somehow only enhancing the already great source material. You wouldn't expect a random combination to be the best adaptation, but it's so well crafted and wastes zero potential that I'd go as far to say that it's the best Muppet movie. But remember how I said it was in theaters around the same time as Aladdin? Well, it doesn't end there. Home Alone 2: Lost in Trump Tower was also in theaters. So for family movies that December, there was some tough competition. The film did fine at the box office, making $27.2 million on a $12 million budget. That's more than double, but not much more. However, the film would gain cult status in future years, seemingly benefited by quality and seasonal replay value. So the movie performed fine and wasn't hated by critics, so Brian Henson continued the direction of utilizing Muppets to retell classic literature. There was one direct-to-video movie titled Muppets Classic Theater, retelling various fairy tales.
Elvis! That is not Elvis! Those are just oddly dressed elves come to help the shoemaker!
I get it, it's Elvis, instead of elves. I'm all f***ed up. Oh, mama. The special is very dull, and inferior to the gem that was The Muppets Go to the Movies. Next, adapting Robert Louis Stevenson's novel, Treasure Island. I mean, like, the book has a shitty fast food chain named after it. That means the source material has to be good, right? Once again, it was a Disney collab, technically, with Disney distributing the film. It does also creatively retain additional similarities from Christmas Carol, as well as The Great Muppet Caper, taking a pure comedy direction for the sequel. The film being an action-adventure story, taking a different approach with less dialogue-oriented comedy, and more of an action slapstick approach rather than the shit-falling-apart slapstick approach. It's the first time we get to see flat-out choreographed action sequences combining humans and puppets. The emphasis on action being a unique quality in comparison. The cinematography additionally containing the familiar good but gritty cinematography. The puppet-human action direction is way more energetic with its absurdity than Labyrinth or Crystal, benefiting its comedic direction. It's more of what you'd conceptually expect from Christmas Carol. Unlike Carol, this is a flat-out parody, and I love it. Taking notes from the previous, realizing the comedic potential between Gonzo and Rizzo, here not narrating, but both playing themselves, tagging along as friends to the protagonists of the novel, Jim Hawkins. Having a main trio not including Kermit, but reducing his role sparingly. Sam Eagle also having a more prominent role and having a great disciplinary dynamic with Kermit and the rest of the Muppet Buccaneers. In addition to Long John Silver remaining human, played by Tim Curry. Curry is just one of those actors who is perfectly hammy and always steals the show. He's about as close as you can get to an IRL Muppet, being a complete opposite to the direction Michael Caine took with his Scrooge performance.
Here you go. Your bread and water for today.
But I ordered shrimp scampi.
It's more than you deserve, you villainous dogs!
The action movie direction not sacrificing the musical numbers, which are consistently over the top and benefit the entire sea shanty aesthetic. The songs are just badass and fucking fun. Legit one of the best pirate soundtracks I've heard, and it's from felt animal puppets. It's hilarious to see felt puppets singing about murder. The opening number, Shiver My Timbers, being ridiculously kick-ass and something you'd never expect to hear in a Muppet movie. The aesthetic helped even more by the score written by Hans Zimmer. Always a great choice for an action movie. His much more famous pirate score, Pirates of the Caribbean series, not coming out until 2003. So this movie might have got him that job. Jim's singing voice isn't that great, it's not a huge issue. He's not even that prominent vocally, the mic is passed around a lot. You know, it's a child actor, it's rarely gonna be perfect. But besides that, the songs are really fun and dig the vibe and tone of the film perfectly. Rolf, once again, silent cameo.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for our lunchtime special.
It's just fun. It's more of a kid's movie that anyone can enjoy. There's less exclusivity for adults to appreciate. There is still some of that adults-only humor despite not really being adult jokes. The politician and lawyer jokes during Tim Curry's musical number, Professional Pirate. But it's just fun. Not constantly brilliant with its dialogue or anything, but it wastes zero time. It's just super fast-paced, not trying to do anything deep. It's just fun. You could do the movie justice in one word. The film made $42.7 million on a $5 million budget, which is less than half the budget of the money spent on Christmas Carol. So it was a hit because it was surprisingly cheaper to make. So the Muppets had still been proven to scrap enough cash and critical acclaim when attempting to do what the boss would have wanted. So if they could make successful movies, why not make another Muppet show?
Oh, baby, I love you. You know that.
Congratulations, Clifford. You got your own show.
Hold on, baby. My own show? I've always wanted to have my own show. Man, this is great. So when does it start?
Oh, in about 30 seconds.
I'll call you back.
Leading to not a revival of the original show to respect the boss's vision of it only having 5 seasons, but another variety show serving as a spiritual successor. Leading to Muppets Tonight, which is easily the second best Muppet show, not that there's much competition. The show first airing on ABC, which is owned by Disney, and second on Disney Channel, so once again, a Boss Wish Disney collab. The thing about the show is that as it is a new show, it focuses more on passing the mic rather than getting the band back together, having the cast being split between old and new. Frank Oz's characters would have a less prominent role since he was busy developing his directing career. The show does partially rely on the ensemble he was prominent in for multiple characters, but the show doesn't do a poor job of balancing old with new. Kermit is not the host, which was a decision that seemingly did not resonate with audiences. And keep in mind, getting the right host Muppet was one of the issues that prevented Sex and Violence and the Valentine's Show from really going anywhere without further reworking. Kermit is still in the show and prominent, but people found the change off-putting as a revival.
It's Muppets Tonight with our very special guest star, Garth Brooks.
If you're a human being, take a break from the race.
I'm sitting with Clifford now, who is one of the newest members. Clifford, how did you hook up with these guys?
Clifford was kind of a character the boss had hoped for, being one of his last original characters, and was puppeteered by Kevin Clash, who was also playing Elmo.
Hey ho, Kermit the Frog here today to talk to you about 2 very important feelings. And those 2 important feelings are happy and sad.
Hi, Green Frog.
Hi there, Elmo.
Although originally a Sesame Street background Muppet, occasionally having Jerry Nelson's signature caveman-y gravel voice.
We are very near to you. Far as where we are. Near.
Elmo wouldn't actually become an established character until 1984.
So you want to play my game too, huh,
Yes,
Elmo?
yes. Play.
Okay, well, why not?
and by 1996 he was easily the most popular character. Being the most realistically childlike, even more than Big Bird, he resonated with parents and children. And in the 90s, he was becoming a hugely popular character, really overthrowing Big Bird as the franchise mascot, if you ask me. In 96, infamously Tickle Me Elmo being the hottest toy of that holiday season, leading to grannies getting trampled at Walmart and whatnot. But Clifford never really caught on with audiences, and him being in this position of unfamiliar host really killed the chances of him being a beloved cast member, given the creative risk of minimalizing Kermit. Clifford sings the theme song. And audiences were probably like, who the f*** is this guy? Some people also found Clifford to be racist, similar to Roosevelt Franklin.
Does somebody call me by my first and last name? Yeah.
Clifford having dreads and not being a catfish, but more of a humanoid like Scooter. You know, Scooter isn't really a random monster like Gonzo, but not quite a human like Statler and Waldorf. I've seen people ask, like, wait, what animal is Elmo, or what race is Ernie? Well, the answer is that it's just monster in orange. The reoccurring Muppet design absurdity is only questioned with Gonzo adding another layer to his character of being insecure about his appearance and unsure of his identity. Clifford is part of the whatever genre Muppet species, and some people found this as a stereotypically black design, even though once again was played by a black person. He was poorly received as host and arguably offensive, so he disappeared not long after Tonight. He has a speaking role in The Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson, and I have to admit, seeing him amongst much more beloved characters is a little off-putting. Blood think he on the team. Additionally, there were later allegations of sexual abuse against Kevin Clash, and Clash would resign from Sesame Street in 2012. There were 3 sexual abuse charges that were dropped, so nothing was ever proven. That happens a lot in Hollywood, and of course the outcomes of cases are always up to debate. But whether he's guilty or not, Clash's reputation isn't the cleanest. Yet another nail on Clifford's coffin. Clifford would also appear on Channel Awesome's Top 5 Worst Muppets list, next to Robin the Frog, what the fuck? Also next to Pepe, what the fuck? Speaking of, Pepe was easily the most notable of the original characters created for Muppets Tonight. Other characters created for the new ensemble include Seymour, the theater elevator who was often seen with Pepe, Johnny Fiamma, a crooner Sinatra insert, and Fiamma's pet monkey bodyguard Salmonella, Howard Tubman, a rich pig with his butler Carter, Bobo the Bear, a less cartoonish bear who is the security guard of the Muppet Theater and is an upgraded design of the bear family that Fozzie meets in Manhattan. Bill the Bubble Guy, the guy who has one talent, shooting bubbles from his head, the punching bag of the group, a fill-in for Scooter, Dr. Phil Von Neuter, a mad veterinarian, and Spamela Hamderson, a parody of Pamela Anderson's role in Baywatch. Not that shit reboot with nothing but dick jokes.
My front bump. You got it. Huge dick. Big dick.
With a reoccurring sketch of Bay of Pigs Watch, similar to the Pigs in Space reoccurring segment, but parodying Baywatch. Pigs in Space was brought back with a sequel reoccurring segment titled Pigs in Space Deep Dish 9, seemingly a homage to Star Trek's various following series and creative interpretations after the original. Leonard Nimoy himself even making a cameo.
Excuse me, Miss Piggy, but that's where you're wrong. I believe it was episode 12 where the Enterprise was invaded by an evil race of super intelligent bubbles.
No wonder you were canceled.
There is also a noticeable edgier tone, as this was the 90s, an era where the standards of what you could do on television was being shifted thanks to shows like Ren and Stimpy, South Park, and Beavis and Butthead, in addition to fulfill the original vision of the Muppets having a primarily adult demographic. It is a little dated with its 90s edge, but it is not a huge issue. Also a little dated is some of the parody humor.
I don't understand the concept of changing. Why do they call it changing? My parents say they're going to change me, but then after they do, I'm exactly the same.
Hey, Jerry, Elaine, am I going bald? Because I think I am.
Baby Jerry, can I borrow some spare formula?
Help yourself.
Giddy up.
Other parodies include E-I-E-I-OR, a parody of ER featuring Fozzie as a veterinarian, which is similar to the reoccurring sketch of Veterinarian's Hospital on The Muppet Show, but taking a further parody approach. Yet another veterinarian segment, Tales from the Vet, a parody of Tales from the Crypt, a reoccurring segment hosted by Dr. Phil Von Neuter. Rolf has one speaking line in the Garth Brooks episode.
But when I club...
Rolf being played by Bill Barretta, who would not speak consistently with Rolf for a fat minute, but he does a great job, and Barretta's Rolf is one of the strongest vocal recreations of a Muppet character. And a black and white picture of Scooter can be seen in the Tony Bennett episode, seemingly in memoriam of Richard Hunt. It's an enjoyable show, but its largest issue is its inferiority to the original. The magic of the previous cast being seemingly uncapturable. The new cast additions not holding a candle to the original ensemble. Unfortunately, the show bombed and only got 2 seasons as a true testament to its unfamiliarity. Having Kermit and other familiar faces be secondary is a risk I absolutely commend, but sadly it did not pay off with general audiences. Like I said, the show is a passing of the mic, and maybe if earlier episodes focused more on familiar characters, the new Muppets could have been more well-liked by audiences from being surrounded by familiar characters to get their attention. Due to its failure, it's only available unofficially, including YouTube, and if you're a diehard, it's worth watching. It's a gem, but not the shiniest gem. So after that bomb, and not the previous 2 movies not being the biggest hits, Brian Henson signed a deal with Sony to help produce family movies, potentially limiting collaboration between the Henson Company and Disney.
You know what? Keep the chair. My gift to you.
Thanks, Mike.
Sony had also previously helped by distributing Manhattan and Space. So that's why they're not on Disney Plus if you haven't noticed. Speaking of space, the concept of Muppets from Space was seemingly conceived out of the retelling adaptations not being the most viable upon release. So Muppets from Space was intended to be less apeshit and more back to basics, since it had been long enough to see earlier projects benefit from simplicity, especially considering the sheer ambition of the previous 2. With one of the original ideas being a rescue mission with Kermit being abducted by aliens, so the rest of the Muppets have to go away from Earth to get him back, parodying the sci-fi genre throughout. But this was altered to make a more character study-oriented direction, making a full movie out of what was suggested in the musical number I'm Going to Go Back There Someday from the Muppet movie, representing the character's acceptance of loss but refusal to end the journey. The song was beloved enough to be performed at Henson's memorial, so the true concept of the film was expanding on a suggestion from a beloved musical number. So how'd it turn out? Incredibly half-baked. Gonzo is insecure about his lack of identity for no reason. Specifically in relation to the plot, he just is, even if that aspect of his character being insecure had been established prior. Hence to why he was chosen for the part of the direction, but context still matters. There's not very much drama surrounding his insecurities. He looks at pictures and notices he's alone and that's it. Although the joke of Gonzo having a nightmare where he's rejected from Noah's Ark is pretty funny. The narrative not really being evolved through anything, the lack of original musical numbers being incredibly distracting, retaining licensed music and occasional jukebox music covers. Now, of course, the Muppets are accustomed to cover songs, but they were never used throughout the feature films, and few covers throughout are distracting. There is a consistent theme of a funk music soundtrack, trying to do that entire 70s Mothership Connection funk style theme, too combined with some of the alien aesthetics. So at least the genre of the sound design is consistent, but no original songs and only a handful of covers. It's an incredibly narratively devolving decision. Wait, was this just done to save money to sell a soundtrack because Sony owns all that music probably? The film isn't poorly shot, a lot of the highlights are nice, but it lacks a lot of the actual grit from previous projects.
Oh, brother.
It's also a very 90s movie, but not for the better. There's a general modernization for the time, which makes it very dated. It's kind of similar to the Looney Tunes show released in 2011, placing the characters in a modern suburban lifestyle.
1 second.
1.
I said I'm coming.
What happened to this country? No one hustles anymore. That's why Canada's killing us these days.
Not all the modernization is bad, though. It actually does incorporate a family dynamic that was kind of lost with previous projects. The 90s humor, however, is oddly edgy. It's a bigger issue here than in Muppets Tonight. In fact, spiritually, it feels more like the Muppets Tonight movie. But Muppets Tonight is inferior, but this is just a slog to get through. And I say kind of a Muppets Tonight movie because some of its prominent characters are in this film. Blood, Thinky on the team. Can't even really give it points for being consistently funny. There's so little actual sci-fi, and it does retain the rescue mission of the original concept and heist parody aspects, but it's incredibly lame. Overall lacking its balance between heart and humor, since the Gonzo identity crisis really doesn't get enough screen time on top of just a flawed concept. The film conceptually answers a question that doesn't really need to be answered, Gonzo being an alien, and not really doing the theme of self-acceptance very prominently. I only laughed twice upon rewatch, also Rolf cameo. Scooter pops up in the background a few times and has one speaking line.
Get your Gonzo t-shirts right here, $10.
Both characters' roles are still reduced for the moment. Also, Rob Schneider cameo, baby! I know it has its defenders, and I respect many of its creative risks, the source material of Muppets Tonight, but a majority of the decisions done to shake up the formula suck ass. The movie also performed horribly, which could be attributed to the general brand in decline and the quality of the film itself. Although, like Manhattan, it is a divisive entry. I don't think any long-running franchise doesn't have a divisive entry. It's not a complete pile of shit, but it's very half-baked. This wasn't the only 1999 Muppet box office bomb. Later that year, The Adventures of Elmo and Grouchland released 3 years too late, if you ask me, and it's not a bad preschool movie. It doesn't treat kids like idiots, which I argue matters most in any piece of preschool media. It's not worth getting mad over. Some of the songs are solid, but it's definitely inferior to Follow That Bird. Sesame Street was definitely past its peak in quality by the 90s, if you ask me. It's fine, maybe a hot take, I don't know.
So are those two married right now? Right there? Gordon and his wife. Imagine one day, like, I don't know, whatever, Cookie Monster's walking down the street and he looks in, like, their window on Sesame Street and, like, they're f***ing each other. Or Gordon's eating her out. He's got his mustache and her pussy. Cookie Monster's looking in the window and Gordon's eating her pussy and Gordon's like, I'll show you how to eat a cookie. Ah!